In January 2018, just as the Hunterian was preparing to mark the tercentenary of the birth of its founder, Dr. William Hunter, the Hunterian was saddened to hear the news of the death of Professor Nicholas Phillipson, a great scholar of the Scottish Enlightenment and a biographer of two of William Hunter's close Scottish friends, Adam Smith and David Hume. In Nick's will was a surprising and generous bequest, a portrait by the American artist Gilbert Stuart of Dr. Richard Brocklesby, a physician and contemporary of Hunter's. In fact, very quickly it became apparent that the portrait of Brocklesby was not by Stuart at all, but rather by Stuart's American contemporary John Singleton Copley. An engraved reproduction of the Brocklesby portrait that appeared alongside his obituary in 1797 made this abundantly clear. And further conversations with Nick's family underlined that while a Copley portrait was known to have existed and thought to have been destroyed in Bristol during the Blitz in the 1940s, in fact, the Copley portrait had been evacuated along with the family, including Nick, to the Cambridgeshire countryside, where it had survived the war, come into Nick's possession, and ultimately was being left to the Hunterian. Brocklesby was born in Somerset to Irish parents in 1722. He was educated in Ireland and subsequently studied medicine at Edinburgh and Leiden. Brocklesby established his career in London, becoming physician to the army in 1758, where among important connections he made was an association with the Duke of Richmond. He subsequently became a Fellow of the Royal Society and a Fellow of the Royal College of Physicians. Among his patients were Dr. Johnson and Edmund Burke, both of whom he supported financially towards the later stages of his life. Brocklesby happened to be in the House of Lords on April the 7th, 1778, when the Earl of Chatham, William Pitt, was giving a speech against a proposition by the Duke of Richmond that the British Army be withdrawn from North America and the American War of Independence be brought to an end. During the course of the speech, Chatham collapsed, and as an eminent physician who happened to be in the House of Lords, Brocklesby was brought in to attend the Earl. Subsequently, the young American painter John Singleton Copley, anxious to establish his reputation in London, conceived a grand historic composition incorporating the faces and heads of many of the characters who had been in the House of Lords on that occasion. The picture was exhibited to the public in London to great acclaim and is now on loan to the National Portrait Gallery in London. Copley, recognising that he had made many portraits of individuals that he might subsequently use for other purposes, offered the opportunity for individuals featured in the historical composition to have their individual images for themselves. And Richard Brocklesby was one of those who commissioned Copley to produce this picture. Nick's bequest to the Hunterian in 2018 was particularly fitting, marking as it did the relationship between Hunter and Brocklesby. While they were not particularly close friends, they certainly knew each other well and moved in the same scientific and public circles. One of the pamphlets in William Hunter's library is an essay concerning the mortality among horned cattle, published by Brocklesby in 1746. The text is an account of pandemic cattle plague, which was prevalent in Britain and Europe during the mid-1740s. Earlier outbreaks of the plague had been highly effectively managed by the British government through local tracking, tracing of outbreaks in localities, ensuring that local outbreaks had been effectively managed, cattle slaughtered, and that where possible, movement of cattle and people associated with those cattle was kept under strict control. It happened in 1745, 1746 that the Jacobite uprising of Bonnie Prince Charlie prevented many of these effective measures being undertaken, and thus it was harder to suppress the pandemic than it had on previous occasions. The most notable contact, however, between Brocklesby and Hunter came in 1770. We have a manuscript paper written by William Hunter in preparation for a presentation at the Royal Society in London, where he describes how Brocklesby took him to see the Duke of Richmond's bull moose, recently arrived in the Duke's collection. It was after Brocklesby introduced Hunter to the moose that Hunter himself commissioned Stubbs to produce the painting of the bull moose that is now one of the great treasures of the Hunterian collection. Nick Phillipson's untimely death in 2018 was a great loss to so many of us with an interest in the Scottish Enlightenment. This wonderful portrait of Richard Brocklesby by John Singleton Copley, however, that now sits in the Hunterian alongside Alan Ramsay's masterful depiction of William Hunter, is a fitting tribute to the generosity in scholarship and in life of Professor Nicholas Phillipson.